The cold wind howled across the barren plains of Zayrath 9, a world that no human had stepped on for centuries. Its skies were dark with swirling red clouds, and jagged mountains cut into the horizon like broken teeth. Among this desolation, a lone figure moved cautiously, his heavy boots crunching against the blackened soil. His name was Kale Draven, and he was humanity's outcast, cast away by the Council, betrayed by his own people, yet still alive. Kale's eyes scanned the horizon, alert for any movement. The planet was supposed to be forbidden, abandoned, and dead. Yet, strange lights flickered in the distance, blinking like distant stars. His communicator, a small device embedded in his wrist, had been silent for hours. No transmissions, no signals, nothing. That was unusual. On any other mission, humanity's scouts would have noticed activity immediately. Here, on Zayrath 9, Kale was completely alone. Or so he thought. He crouched behind a jagged rock and peered into a narrow canyon ahead. Shadows moved strangely across the walls, shifting and twisting as if alive. Kale's heart pounded. He had trained for hostile worlds before, but Zayrath 9 was different. The atmosphere carried a subtle hum, a vibration he could feel in his bones. It was almost alive. Every instinct screamed at him to leave, to fly back to the safety of his ship hovering silently above, yet curiosity drove him forward. As he stepped into the canyon, the temperature dropped sharply. Frost formed along his suit's edges, and his breath came out in clouds. His boots slipped on a slick surface, and he crouched low, sliding forward like a predator. Then he saw it, a massive shape lying across the canyon floor. At first, he thought it was a boulder, but its surface glimmered unnaturally, reflecting the faint light of Zayrath 9's twin moons. Kale reached out, hesitating, and touched it. The surface was cold, harder than steel, but strangely pulsing. A deep vibration traveled up his arm. Suddenly, the shape stirred. A hiss, low and menacing, echoed through the canyon. Kale's pulse skyrocketed, and his hand moved instinctively to his sidearm. The shape opened slowly, revealing an eye the size of a human head, glowing with an eerie blue light. Kale froze. The creature, or machine, was alive. Or at least, it was aware. It did not attack immediately. It watched him with an intelligence he could not comprehend. His mind raced. No record of Zayrath 9 mentioned anything alive. No record mentioned a sentinel waiting for intruders. Yet here it was, staring directly at him, calculating, judging. He whispered under his breath, "Stay calm. Don't move too fast." His hand trembled on his sidearm, but he forced himself to breathe evenly. Slowly, Kale inched backward, studying the eye. Then, a sudden movement, the creature's body split open like metal petals, revealing a chamber filled with glowing symbols. The symbols danced and shifted, forming patterns he did not understand. And then, a voice echoed, not in words he could hear, but in thoughts, direct and invasive. "Why are you here?" Kale's eyes widened. His thoughts scrambled, and a shiver ran down his spine. He realized this world was not empty. It had been waiting for someone, or something. He had been warned about the forbidden worlds, about their dangers, but no warning could have prepared him for this. Humanity had declared him an outcast, a mistake, yet here he was, standing on the edge of a discovery that could change everything. The eye blinked once, slowly, and Kale felt an unexplainable connection. Images flooded his mind, ships burning in space, civilizations rising and falling, and humans walking across the stars. He understood, in an instant, that this world had been a prison, a test, or perhaps a warning. And he was the first human to survive it. Before he could process more, the ground beneath him trembled. Rocks cracked and split, and a low roar rolled across the canyon walls. Kale dove to the side, narrowly avoiding a falling boulder. His communicator crackled to life, a distorted signal breaking through the silence. "Kale, are you alive?" A familiar voice shouted. But the voice was distant, fading, drowned by a new, more pressing sound, the growl of something enormous moving in the shadows behind him. Kale's instincts kicked in. He ran. Sprinting along the narrow canyon, He dodged jagged rocks and leapt over deep fissures. The eye watched, silently calculating, as if letting him survive to see the next challenge. His heart pounded, lungs burned, but he did not stop. Every step took him deeper into the forbidden world, closer to a truth humanity had long forgotten, or hoped would remain buried. Then, without warning, the path ahead opened into a vast chamber. Towering structures, made of an unknown metal, stretched into the darkness. Strange energy pulses ran across the walls, illuminating alien carvings that hinted at both incredible technology and terrible power. Cale stopped for a moment, catching his breath, and realized he was no longer just a human outcast. He had become the first witness to a world humanity was never meant to see. And he knew, deep down, that Zayrath 9 was just the beginning. Cale stared at the alien chamber, his chest still heaving. The towering structures seemed almost alive, pulsing with energy that whispered secrets he could not yet understand. Shadows twisted along the walls, forming shapes that looked like creatures, yet none of them moved. A strange calm settled over him, but he knew better than to trust it. Zayrath 9 had already shown him that appearances were deceptive. As he stepped forward, the floor beneath him vibrated. Small lights traced patterns across the ground, forming symbols that matched the ones inside the creature he had seen earlier. Cale felt a shiver crawl down his spine. The symbols were not random, they were a message. But from whom? And for what purpose? He reached out his hand instinctively, and the symbols responded, glowing brighter. The chamber seemed to hum in approval, or perhaps in warning. Then he heard it, a soft, clicking sound, echoing from the far end of the chamber. Cale froze. He could not see anything through the darkness, yet the sound was deliberate. Someone, or something, was moving toward him. He drew his sidearm, checking its energy level. Fully charged. Good. Whatever was coming would find him ready. A shape emerged from the shadows, tall and thin, with limbs that bent in unnatural ways. Its face was hidden beneath a helmet or exoskeleton, and it carried a weapon that pulsed with faint energy. Cale could not tell if it was organic or machine. The figure stopped a few meters away, tilting its head as if studying him. A voice echoed inside his mind again, direct and urgent. You should not be here. Leave, before it is too late. Cale swallowed hard. I'm not leaving, he said aloud, though he doubted the figure could hear him in normal sound. The being's head tilted slightly, then it raised a hand. A holographic map unfolded between them, displaying the canyon, the structures, and pathways that twisted into the darkness. One path glowed brighter than the others, as if pointing the way forward. Cale hesitated. Following it might be dangerous, but ignoring it could be worse. He stepped forward cautiously, studying the path. Suddenly, the floor trembled violently. Dust and debris fell from the high ceiling. Cale stumbled but regained his footing. Something massive was moving beneath the surface. The forbidden world was alive with threats he could not yet see. The being gestured for him to follow. Cale had no choice. As he moved, he noticed the walls around him shifting subtly, like the chamber itself was breathing. Strange symbols carved into the structures glowed and faded as he passed. It was as if the world was watching him, testing him. Cale felt a mix of fear and awe. Humanity had never faced anything like this, and yet here he was, the outcast, stepping deeper into the unknown. Suddenly, a roar split the air. Cale ducked instinctively as a massive creature lunged from a side passage. It had scales harder than metal, glowing eyes, and a mouth full of jagged teeth. Cale fired his sidearm, energy bolts striking the creature's armor, but it did not stop. The alien being ahead of him moved faster than he could follow, seemingly unharmed, and with a flick of its hand, the creature froze, mid-lunge, like time itself had paused. Cale's jaw dropped. The being turned to him, and again he felt the words in his mind. Survive, and you will learn. Fail, and Zayrath 9 will consume you. Cale swallowed and followed, moving as quickly as he dared. The path led him to a massive doorway, carved from a single piece of unknown metal. Symbols covered its surface, glowing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The alien being paused, and for a moment Kale thought it might leave him behind. Then it pushed the door open. Inside was a vast hall, filled with technology beyond his understanding. Machines floated without support, lights hummed in patterns that suggested intelligence, and screens displayed star systems Kale had never seen. At the center of the hall, on a raised platform, was a human-shaped figure encased in glass. Kale froze. It was wearing an old Earth spacesuit, scratched and weathered, but unmistakably human. The helmet reflected his own wide-eyed stare. Something about the figure was familiar, though he could not place it. His communicator buzzed in his wrist, but the signal was weak, garbled. "Kale, come back now," the voice whispered, fading in and out. Kale shook his head, trying to focus. He reached toward the glass, and the symbols on the platform responded, lighting up in bright, blue pulses. A surge of energy hit him, and suddenly he could see visions: humans exploring distant worlds, humans locked in battles with unknown forces, and humans making choices that shaped galaxies. And then, one thought dominated all others. This world had been a prison, not for him, but for them. Kale stumbled back, panting, as the energy faded. The alien being watched silently. The path ahead was clear, but more dangerous than ever. He had survived the first trials of Zerath 9, but he knew the real test was only beginning. Somewhere in the darkness of this forbidden world, answers awaited, answers humanity had never dreamed of. And Kale, the outcast, was the only one left who could find them. Kale's heart raced as he stared at the human figure encased in the glass. Something about it felt alive, though no one moved. He could not explain it, but he felt a pulse, a rhythm that matched his own heartbeat. The alien being stood silently beside him, its glowing eyes fixed on Kale, almost urging him forward. He took a deep breath and stepped closer. The glass was cold under his fingertips, yet as he touched it, a jolt of energy shot up his arm. Images flashed in his mind, visions of humans long gone, explorers who had vanished on forbidden worlds, their ships destroyed, their stories erased. Kale's mind spun. Why had Zerath 9 held these humans? And why had it chosen him, an outcast, to walk this world alive? Suddenly, the platform beneath the glass began to hum, and the glass itself shimmered, dissolving like water. Kale instinctively took a step back. Inside was not just a suit, it was a body, preserved perfectly, as if time had frozen. The human's eyes opened slowly, glowing faintly with a strange blue light. Kale stumbled backward, disbelief and fear warring inside him. "Who are you?" Kale whispered. The voice was soft, almost mechanical, but distinctly human. "I am what was left of the first explorers," the figure said, its voice echoing inside Kale's mind. "And you are the one the world has been waiting for." Kale froze. The words made no sense. "Waiting for me? I am nothing. I was exiled." The figure's eyes gleamed brighter. "Exiled, yes. That is why you survive. Zerath 9 does not forgive, it does not forget. It tests those who are lost, those who others abandon. You are humanity's last chance to understand, to reclaim what was hidden." Before Kale could respond, the ground trembled violently. A low, echoing roar shook the hall. He looked toward the entrance, and his stomach dropped. Massive shadows moved along the walls, creatures larger than anything he had ever seen, their forms shifting between flesh and metal. They had been sleeping, waiting. And now they were awake. Kale's instincts kicked in. He glanced at the alien being, which now raised its arms, creating a protective barrier around the platform. "Go," it said silently. "The path forward is your only chance." Kale sprinted down the hall, dodging falling debris and bursts of energy that shot from the walls. The creatures followed, their massive forms crashing through obstacles as if the hall was nothing more than air. Kale fired his sidearm, energy bolts striking their armored hides, but they barely slowed. Every second counted, and he knew one mistake could be his last. Turning a corner, he saw a tunnel carved deep into the mountain. Strange lights pulsed along the walls, guiding him forward. Kale ran, feeling the ground shake beneath his feet. The creatures were relentless, their roars deafening. He could sense them closing in, and yet the tunnel seemed to stretch on forever, twisting deeper into the forbidden world. As he ran, Cale noticed something strange. Symbols appeared on the walls, glowing faintly as if responding to his presence. He reached out instinctively, and the symbols shifted, forming arrows, pointing deeper into the darkness. The alien being's earlier warning echoed in his mind: "Survive, or Zayrath 9 will consume you." Cale understood. He had to trust the world, even as it threatened to destroy him. Finally, he reached a massive chamber, unlike anything he had seen. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness, and enormous machines floated mid-air, their purpose incomprehensible. At the center of the chamber was a large orb, glowing with a soft, blue light. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Cale felt drawn toward it, as if it called to him. The creatures stopped at the edge of the chamber, unable to cross an invisible boundary. Cale stepped closer to the orb, and a sudden wave of energy washed over him. Images of humans spread across galaxies, fighting, exploring, surviving against impossible odds, filled his mind. Then he understood. The orb was a record, a memory, a warning. Humanity had left pieces of itself across the stars, and Zayrath 9 had preserved them, waiting for someone worthy. Cale's chest heaved, his mind racing. The orb pulsed again, sending a beam of light toward the ceiling. From within the light, a doorway appeared, a portal to the next stage, the next challenge. The alien being's voice whispered inside his mind once more: "This is where your trial begins. Step through, and discover the truth. Step back, and be lost forever." Cale hesitated for a moment, looking back at the creatures behind him, the hall he had barely survived, and the preserved human who had spoken to him. He clenched his fists, feeling anger, fear, and determination collide. He had been an outcast, abandoned by humanity, but now he had a choice. Step forward, or die forgotten in a forbidden world. With a deep breath, Cale moved toward the portal. The energy from the orb enveloped him, filling him with warmth, power, and knowledge he could not yet control. The creatures roared one last time, then froze, as if respecting his courage. Cale's vision blurred, the world around him twisting and folding. And then, with a sudden pull, he was gone, stepping into the unknown depths of Zayrath 9, where answers awaited, and dangers would test him more than ever before. And Cale knew, without a doubt, that the forbidden world was far from done with him. Cale stumbled as the portal's energy faded, leaving him in darkness. The air was thick and heavy, carrying a metallic tang that made him gag. He looked around and saw a cavern stretching farther than his eyes could reach. Strange, bioluminescent fungi grew along the walls, casting eerie green and purple lights that flickered like dying stars. The ground was uneven, covered in jagged rocks and shallow pools of liquid that reflected the faint glow. He took cautious steps, each echo bouncing through the cavern. The portal behind him disappeared completely, leaving him with no way back. Zayrath 9 was closing its traps, and Cale understood. There was no turning around now. The alien being from before appeared beside him again, silent but imposing. Cale felt its gaze on him, urging him forward. "Where are we going?" Cale asked, though he knew it would not answer aloud. The being communicated through thoughts, clear and insistent. Follow the path. Trust the world. Survive. Cale moved deeper into the cavern. The walls began to narrow, forming tight corridors that seemed almost alive, pulsing slightly as he passed. His suit sensors picked up faint life signs, creatures moving in the shadows, watching, waiting. He tightened his grip on his sidearm. Every instinct screamed that danger was close, yet he could feel something else. The world itself was guiding him, as if it recognized him as a survivor. Suddenly, the cavern opened into a vast underground lake. The water glowed faintly with an unnatural blue light, and massive shapes moved beneath the surface. Cale froze, realizing the lake was alive. Shadows swirled in the depths, forming grotesque, ever-changing shapes. One of them breached the surface, a serpent-like creature with scales of black and silver, its eyes glowing like embers. Cale raised his sidearm and fired. Energy bolts struck the creature, but it barely reacted, diving back into the lake with a roar that shook the cavern walls. Kale's heart pounded. He was not just fighting the world, he was surviving it. And survival required more than courage, it required understanding. He noticed symbols etched into the rocks surrounding the lake, faintly glowing. He reached out instinctively, and the symbols shifted, forming a sequence that pointed toward a narrow passage on the far side. Kale took a deep breath and ran, ignoring the roars from the lake behind him. The passage led him into another chamber, this one filled with remnants of technology, clearly ancient. Crashed ships, strange weapons, and machinery littered the floor. Kale's eyes widened. These were not Zayrath 9's creations, they were human. Humans had been here before, long before him, and something had gone terribly wrong. Dust-covered logs lay scattered, but some activated when he approached, projecting holographic images of humans in battle, fighting off unknown threats, struggling to survive. Kale realized the truth. Humanity had tried to explore forbidden worlds before. They had left, failed, or vanished. And now he was walking the path they could not finish. A shiver ran down his spine. The burden of survival was not just his, it was the legacy of every human who had dared to step into the unknown. A sudden sound echoed through the chamber. Kale turned, spotting a shadow moving along the wall. A creature emerged, taller than any human, its limbs jointed in impossible angles, eyes reflecting an intelligence that chilled him. It did not attack immediately. Instead, it spoke, not with words, but through thoughts, piercing Kale's mind. "You are not meant to leave alive." Kale's pulse quickened. He fired at the creature, but it dodged with unnatural speed. The fight was inevitable. Kale ran deeper into the chamber, dodging debris, leaping over fallen machinery, and firing at the pursuing entity. Sparks flew with each shot, lighting up the darkness for brief moments. The alien being from before appeared at the far end, projecting a protective field that slowed the creature's advance. Kale made a break for it, sprinting through corridors that twisted and turned like a living maze. Finally, he reached a massive door, engraved with glowing symbols that seemed familiar, the same as the ones guiding him before. Kale pressed his hand against the door, and it opened slowly, revealing a massive chamber bathed in golden light. At the center stood a human-sized figure encased in crystal, different from the first. It radiated power, its presence commanding. Kale knew instinctively this figure held answers humanity had sought for centuries. Kale stepped forward cautiously, but a warning echoed in his mind, from the alien being and the world itself: approach carefully. Zayrath 9 tests all who enter. One wrong step could mean annihilation. The creatures from before were still out there, and the cavern seemed alive with more waiting threats. But Kale clenched his fists. He had survived impossible trials, faced dangers no human should endure, and emerged stronger, more aware. He had become more than an outcast, he had become humanity's witness, the only one left to uncover truths long hidden. As he reached the crystal figure, the golden light pulsed, and Kale felt energy surge through him, warming his body and sharpening his mind. The figure's eyes opened, glowing with intelligence and life. The chamber trembled, and Kale knew this was only the beginning. The real challenges of Zayrath 9 were still ahead. But Kale was ready. He had to be. Humanity depended on him, even if they had forgotten him. And for the first time, Kale felt hope. Kale stood before the glowing crystal figure, his heart hammering in his chest. The figure radiated an aura of intelligence and power he had never felt before. It was not human, yet it held a connection to humanity, something that felt familiar deep inside him. The chamber vibrated, responding to his presence, as if the world itself recognized him as someone important. "You have survived the trials," the figure's voice echoed inside his mind, soft but commanding. "Few humans could endure what you have faced. Few would dare to walk this path." Kale swallowed hard. "Why me? I was exiled, cast out by my own people. I'm nothing." The crystal figure pulsed with light, and Kale felt a surge of energy flow through him. "You are more than nothing. You are the last witness, the last hope." Humanity has forgotten the dangers that lie beyond the stars, the mistakes of the past, and the worlds they were forbidden to touch. Zerath 9 has preserved those secrets. You are chosen to uncover them, and to survive what no one else could. A sudden rumble shook the chamber. Kale's instincts kicked in, and he looked toward the entrance. Shadows were moving, creatures he had only glimpsed before emerging from the darkness. Massive, shifting forms with glowing eyes, teeth sharp enough to tear through metal, advanced silently toward him. Zerath 9 was testing him again, pushing him to the limit. The crystal figure pulsed rapidly, and Kale felt a path open in his mind. Symbols appeared on the floor, glowing faintly, forming a trail leading deeper into the forbidden world. He hesitated. Every step forward meant danger, but staying meant death. He clenched his fists and moved, trusting the guidance of the figure and the world around him. As he ran, the chamber walls shifted, twisting and reshaping themselves. What had once been a clear path became a maze of obstacles, floating rocks, and jagged spires. Energy pulses shot through the air, forcing him to duck, roll, and leap to survive. Kale's suit sensors were overloaded, but his determination pushed him forward. He was no longer just an outcast. He was humanity's last chance to witness what had been hidden for centuries. Suddenly, the creatures lunged from the shadows. Kale fired his sidearm, striking one of the massive beings in its chest. Sparks flew, but it barely slowed. The alien being that had guided him before appeared at the edge of the chamber, projecting a protective shield that kept the creatures at bay, buying Kale precious seconds to escape. He sprinted toward a tunnel that led further down into the forbidden world. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber filled with human artifacts, ships, machinery, and weapons from expeditions long forgotten. Kale's eyes widened. Humanity had tried to explore worlds like Zerath 9 before, and many had died. Here were the remains of their struggle, preserved by the world itself. The realization hit Kale hard. He was walking in the footsteps of countless humans who had vanished, their efforts lost to time. At the center of the chamber floated a sphere of pure energy, radiating warmth and light. Kale could feel knowledge pouring from it, filling his mind with visions of humans fighting across the stars, civilizations rising and falling, and choices that shaped entire galaxies. He understood now, this energy held the key to humanity's forgotten legacy, a record of what they had once dared to do, and what dangers still awaited. Kale reached out toward the sphere, and as his fingers touched it, images flooded his mind. He saw humans walking on worlds far older than Earth, discovering technologies that could destroy entire star systems, and fighting enemies that were not meant to be defeated. He saw failure, loss, and courage intertwined in ways no record had ever captured. And then, he saw a warning. Zerath 9 was alive. It tested all who entered. It adapted, evolved, and it did not forgive. A deafening roar shook the chamber. Kale spun around to see a massive creature, larger than anything he had faced, advancing toward him. Its eyes glowed with intelligence, and its body shifted between metal and flesh. It had learned, adapted. It was Zerath 9's ultimate guardian. Kale's mind raced. He had no time to think, only act. He raised his sidearm, fired at the creature, and dodged as it lunged. The energy sphere pulsed violently, and Kale felt the power surge within him, strengthening his movements, sharpening his senses. He realized the crystal figure had chosen him not just to witness, but to fight, to survive, to carry humanity's legacy forward. Every step he took, every dodge, every strike, brought him closer to understanding Zerath 9's trials. The Forbidden World was not just a prison, it was a test of survival, intelligence, and courage. Kale, humanity's outcast, had become the key to unlocking its secrets, and perhaps, the key to ensuring humanity's survival in the galaxy. As the creature roared again, Kale charged forward, determined. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. And Zerath 9 would learn that the outcast of humanity was far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. Kale's breath came in ragged gasps as the massive guardian loomed over him. Its shifting metal and flesh form reflected the pulsing light from the energy sphere. Every instinct screamed to run, but Kale knew the creature would adapt faster than he could flee. Survival required more than speed, it required strategy, courage, and trust in the world that had chosen him. He darted to the side, rolling past jagged rocks as the creature lunged. Sparks flew as its claws scraped the floor, and the echoing roar shook the chamber. Kale's sidearm fired repeatedly, energy bolts striking the beast, but the strikes barely slowed it. Zerath 9's ultimate guardian was learning with every move he made. Then, a surge from the energy sphere hit him like a shockwave. His senses sharpened. He could feel the rhythm of the creature, the pulse of the chamber, the hidden currents in the air. Zerath 9 was alive, connected, aware. Kale's mind raced. He had to think differently. He had to use the world itself. He leapt toward the sphere, placing his hand on it. Energy surged through him, not just enhancing his strength, but connecting him to Zerath 9 itself. For the first time, he could sense the patterns of the forbidden world, the flow of its life force, and the weak points of the Guardian. With a focused breath, Kale moved like never before, dodging attacks and striking precisely at the creature's vulnerable spots. Sparks and light exploded around him as the Guardian roared in frustration. Suddenly, the crystal figure appeared again, hovering near the sphere. Its eyes glowed brighter, and Kale felt understanding flood his mind. The figure had been guiding him, not just as a mentor, but as a key. The energy sphere, the Guardian, the tunnels, even the creatures, they were all part of a test. Survive, learn, and become worthy. Kale realized the truth. Zerath 9 was more than a world. It was a living archive, a trial, and a weapon all at once. Those who entered had to prove themselves, or be erased. And he, the outcast of humanity, had not only survived the first trials. He had adapted, learned, and now had the chance to master what no human before him could. The Guardian lunged one last time, faster than anything Kale had seen. Time seemed to slow as he focused through the energy surge, moving with a precision he didn't know he possessed. He struck the Guardian's core, a glowing point at the center of its chest. The beast let out a final roar and collapsed, its massive body disintegrating into sparks that faded into the chamber's floor. Kale staggered back, panting, sweat mixing with the grime on his face. He touched the energy sphere again, and visions of humans across the stars flashed before his eyes. Forgotten explorers, lost battles, ancient technologies. Everything humanity had achieved, hidden or abandoned, now flowed into him. He understood why he had been exiled. The world had needed someone who could survive without fear, without hesitation, someone underestimated. He had become that someone. The crystal figure's voice resonated in his mind one final time. You are ready. The secrets of Zerath 9 are now yours to witness. But be warned, this is only the beginning. Greater trials await, and the galaxy itself may not survive what is to come. Kale swallowed hard, knowing the weight of responsibility now rested on his shoulders. He had survived the Forbidden World's first true test, but he was far from safe. Zerath 9 still had layers of danger, mysteries that could kill him in seconds, and creatures he could not yet imagine. And beyond this world, the galaxy itself would test him in ways even Zerath 9 could not predict. He turned and saw a new passage open, bathed in light that seemed alive. It pulsed like a heartbeat, calling him forward. Kale stepped toward it cautiously, but determination burned in his chest. Humanity had abandoned him, labeled him an outcast, but now he carried the legacy of every lost human explorer, every secret hidden in the stars, and every challenge humanity had left unanswered. The forbidden world of Zerath 9 was no longer a prison, it was a crucible, and Kale had emerged stronger, sharper, and ready to face whatever came next. As he stepped through the glowing passage, the chamber trembled one final time, and a whisper echoed through the shadows. Survive, and you may yet save them all. Kale's jaw tightened. He knew the stakes had never been higher. And somewhere deep inside, he felt a spark of hope, the spark that had kept humanity alive across centuries, waiting for someone like him to rise. He was the outcast, the survivor, the witness, and perhaps, the galaxy's last hope. Kale stepped through the glowing passage, and immediately, a vast landscape opened before him. Zerath 9 had revealed itself fully. Mountains of black crystal stretched into red skies, rivers of molten metal twisted like veins, and enormous floating structures hovered above, alive with energy. The world was no longer a chamber or cavern. It was a living, breathing entity, vast and dangerous beyond anything he had imagined. The crystal figure hovered near him, silent now, letting him take the lead. Kale's mind raced with everything he had learned. The energy sphere, the Guardian, the tunnels, the lost explorers, they were all part of Zayrath 9's trial. Every challenge had shaped him, sharpened him, and prepared him for this moment. He was no longer an outcast. He was humanity's chosen witness, the only one capable of surviving this forbidden world. Ahead, a colossal structure rose from the ground. Its walls shimmered with a strange golden light, and at its apex, he could see movement, beings or machines, he could not tell, guarding something of immense power. Kale knew instinctively that this was the final test, the culmination of Zayrath 9's trials. As he approached, the ground trembled. Massive creatures emerged, not just from shadows but from the very earth, their bodies fused with metal and crystal. They roared, eyes glowing with intelligence and fury. Kale drew his sidearm and activated every enhancement from the energy sphere. Every movement was precise, every shot calculated. The creatures lunged, but he dodged, countered, and struck, moving with a rhythm guided by the world itself. He reached the base of the colossal structure, and a series of glowing symbols appeared, forming a staircase into the heart of the building. As he climbed, visions filled his mind, humanity across centuries, explorers reaching for stars, civilizations rising and falling, and yet all of it tied to Zayrath 9. The world had recorded humanity's triumphs and failures, waiting for someone worthy to claim the knowledge and power hidden within. At the top, Kale entered a chamber that left him breathless. A massive, crystalline interface pulsed with energy, projecting holographic stars, starships, and planets. It was a command center, ancient and powerful, capable of controlling the very fabric of this forbidden world. And at the center, a human-shaped figure stood, glowing with immense power, human, yet enhanced beyond comprehension, a sentinel left behind by humanity's first explorers. "You have survived," the sentinel said, its voice echoing inside Kale's mind. "Few could. Zayrath 9 tested every fiber of your being. You are worthy, not just to witness, but to act." Kale swallowed hard. "Act? How? I am just one man." The sentinel's eyes glowed brighter. "One man can carry the weight of centuries. Zayrath 9 has preserved the knowledge, the power, and the history of humanity's lost explorers. You can wield it, protect it, and decide the fate of worlds. The galaxy itself depends on your choices." Before Kale could respond, the chamber trembled violently. The guardian creatures from before had returned, more numerous, more aggressive. They had evolved, learned from his previous encounters, and were now determined to stop him. Kale realized there was no room for hesitation. Survival, understanding, and action, all had to happen at once. Drawing on the energy from Zayrath 9 itself, Kale moved with unmatched speed and precision. He dodged, countered, and struck, disabling the creatures one by one. Each victory felt like a key turning in a lock, opening the world's secrets to him. Finally, he reached the crystalline interface, placing his hands on the glowing controls. A surge of energy enveloped him, connecting his mind to Zayrath 9, and suddenly, he understood everything. The trials, the world's purpose, the galaxy's forgotten history. He saw humans scattered across the stars, unaware of the dangers, unaware of the legacy waiting for them. He saw allies and enemies, planets on the brink of destruction, and the fragile thread that connected all of humanity. And he knew what he had to do. Kale activated the interface fully, and a wave of energy pulsed across Zayrath 9. The guardian creatures froze, then disintegrated. The world itself seemed to bow, acknowledging him as its master, its witness, its protector. He had survived the forbidden world, uncovered its secrets, and claimed humanity's lost legacy. As the energy settled, Kale looked out over Zayrath 9. The red skies glimmered with stars, rivers of molten metal reflected distant galaxies, and the enormous floating structures pulsed with life. He smiled grimly. Humanity had abandoned him, labeled him an outcast, but now he had become something greater, a survivor, a witness, and perhaps, the savior of countless worlds. For the first time, he felt the weight of purpose, the spark of hope, and the undeniable truth. Humanity's outcast had walked a forbidden world, and lived to tell the tale. And now, the galaxy would never forget him.